Sergeant Lee entered the last stop with careful steps. The space station bar sat at the edge of known space, where rules blurred and species mingled. Soft blue lights cast long shadows across the metal floors, highlighting the strange collection of beings that called this neutral ground home for the night. She paused at the entrance, taking in the scene. 12 years in Alliance Special Forces had taught her to assess a room quickly. 4 exits, including the maintenance shaft behind the bar. 23 patrons from at least 8 different species. A Centaurian bartender with aged scales and too many eyes-polished glasses with practiced movements. The air smelled of alien spices, synthetic alcohol, and the faint metallic tang that all space stations carried. Lee adjusted her civilian clothes, plain, forgettable, hiding the combat-ready body beneath. Her dark hair was pulled back simply, her face deliberately unremarkable. She preferred it that way. Being noticed got soldiers killed. "What'll it be?" asked the Centaurian bartender as Lee approached. His name tag read, Mr. Choi. "Whatever humans usually drink here," Lee replied, keeping her voice neutral. Choi's upper eyes blinked in sequence. "Not many humans come through anymore. Not since the border disputes." He poured something amber into a glass. "This won't kill you, might even taste familiar." Lee nodded thanks, leaving appropriate credit chips on the counter. She chose a corner table with a clear view of the door, back firmly against the wall. Old habits. The liquid burned pleasantly as she sipped. Synthetic whiskey. Not great. Not terrible. Her attention drifted to the bar's other occupants. A group of jellyfish-like Yarans floated near the large viewport, their translucent bodies glowing faintly as they communicated through light patterns. 3 rock-skinned Tamari huddled near the heating vents, their crystalline growths catching and fracturing the bar's dim lights. A table of 4-armed Vortec traders argued loudly over shipping manifests and tariff codes. None were immediate threats. Lee allowed herself to relax slightly, though her hand occasionally brushed the empty holster on her hip where her service weapon would normally sit. Weapons weren't allowed in the last stop, another reason species could mingle here without immediate bloodshed. The whiskey couldn't quite drown the memories of her last mission. 3 weeks ago on a moon with no name, watching half her team die to save a research outpost. The medals they'd pinned on her afterward meant nothing. The mandatory shore leave felt like punishment. "Cracks warrior," a voice said nearby, breaking into her thoughts. Lee turned slightly, catching sight of 2 Yarans who had drifted closer to the bar. "Impossible," replied the bartender, all 6 arms pausing their work. "Cracks don't come to Alliance space. Patrol ship spotted one entering this sector yesterday," the Yaran insisted, its light patterns flashing with anxiety. "Everyone's talking about it." The bar's atmosphere shifted subtly. Conversations quieted as the news spread from table to table. Eyes and various sensory organs darted toward exits. Even the rowdy Vortec traders lowered their voices. "What would a Cracks want here?" someone asked. Lee knew the answer, though she remained silent. The Cracks were apex predators, 8 feet of muscle, natural armor, and evolutionary perfection. They considered other sentient species as prey, occasionally hunting them for sport. The Alliance had established treaties with them decades ago, but individual Cracks warriors sometimes ignored political boundaries. Mr. Choi moved to a communication panel behind the bar, speaking quietly. Likely calling station security, Lee thought. Not that it would help much if the rumors were true. A Tamari near the heating vent stood suddenly, crystal formations clinking as it moved toward the door. "This establishment no longer feels safe. I shall—" The door slammed open with tremendous force. Metal groaned as the reinforced frame bent inward. Conversations died instantly. Glasses froze halfway to mouths. The Tamari stumbled backward, cracks spreading across its crystalline shoulder where it had been struck by the door. In the doorway stood a nightmare made flesh, 8 feet tall, covered in natural armor plates that shifted with each breath. Its scaled skin was deep forest, green with black markings, 4-fingered hands ending in hooked talons that dripped with a faintly glowing toxin. Vertical pupils and amber eyes scanned the room with predatory intent. A Cracks warrior had found the last stop. The massive creature had to duck to enter, its armored head nearly brushing the ceiling. It moved with shocking grace for its size, talons clicking against metal flooring. Lee remained perfectly still, watching. She'd never seen a Krax in person. Few humans had and survived to tell about it. The creature surveyed the room slowly, taking in the various species, nostrils flaring as it sampled their scents. Everyone waited to see what would happen next. The Krax warrior stood silently for a moment, taking in the scents and sounds of the bar. Its amber eyes moved across the room methodically, as if cataloging each living being present. The bar had gone completely quiet. Even the normal hum of the station's air circulators seemed muted. "What a collection of prey," the Krax finally said, its voice a deep rumble that seemed to vibrate the metal floor. It spoke trade speak with strange clicks between words. So many species. So convenient. No one moved. Several patrons stared at their drinks, avoiding eye contact. A Vortec trader accidentally knocked over a glass, causing a sharp sound that made everyone flinch. The Krax's mouth parts clicked together in what might have been amusement. Such fear. I can smell it. Delicious. Lee kept her breathing even, watching as the predator moved deeper into the bar. Its armor plates shifted like overlapping shields with each step. Those talons could tear through standard body armor. Alliance reports claimed the glowing toxin could paralyze most species in seconds. With startling speed, the Krax lunged across the room. Its arm shot out, grabbing a crystalline Temeri diplomat before anyone could react. The alien's mineral body made cracking sounds as the Krax lifted it one-handed. "Your kind claimed to be warriors once," the Krax said to the Temeri, examining it like a curious toy. "Your ancestors fought well, but now? Soft. Weak." In another blur of motion, the Krax's free hand seized a Vortec trader who had tried to inch. Toward the exit, the four-armed alien struggled uselessly against the predator's grip. "2 prizes already," the warrior announced to the room. "Who will be third? Who will stand? Who will fight?" Lee scanned the room. Several capable fighters were present. A massive Drev mercenary by the bar, 2 Scalari enforcers near the gaming tables. Even the Centaurian bartender had combat training based on his movements. Yet all remained still, eyes down. This was neutral territory, not their problem. The Krax slammed the Temeri against a wall, causing crystal shards to break free from its body. The alien made a high-pitched sound of pain. "So disappointing," the predator hissed. "The galaxy grows weaker each cycle." Lee felt something shift inside her. 12 years of battlefield discipline warred with something older, more fundamental. The oath she had taken when joining the Alliance Special Forces echoed in her mind. To protect all sentient life under Alliance protection, regardless of form, origin, or circumstance. Her fingers clenched around her empty glass. The Krax was now toying with the Vortec, examining each of its 4 arms as if deciding which to remove first. Lee stood up. The sound of her chair scraping back seemed unnaturally loud in the silent bar. Every eye turned to her, some in surprise, others in horror. "Enough," she said, her voice firm and carrying across the room. "Let them go." The Krax turned slowly, mandibles clicking rapidly. It stared at Lee with what might have been genuine surprise before its eyes narrowed. "A human?" The predator tilted its head. "Soft-skinned, fragile humans challenge Krax now?" Lee stepped away from her table, moving into the open area of the bar. She kept her stance relaxed but balanced, ready to move in any direction. I said, "Let them go." The Krax studied her for a moment, then released both captives with casual disregard. The alien scrambled away, the Temeri leaving small crystal fragments in its wake. "Your species has always confused me," the Krax said, turning fully toward Lee. Not strong, not fast, not well armored, yet somehow spread across the stars. It moved closer, towering over her. "What makes you think you can stand against me, human?" Lee adopted the formal posture of challenge she'd studied in briefings about Krax culture. Right foot forward, hands open at sides, chin raised to expose the neck. It was the traditional stance of one predator acknowledging another. "I stand as barrier between hunter and hunted," she said, reciting the formal words. Take me instead. Murmurs spread through the bar. The Krax's eyes widened slightly, vertical pupils dilating. It clearly hadn't expected a human to know their customs. You invoke challenge rights? The Predator's voice held a new note. Curiosity, mixed with cruel amusement. You understand that means combat? To submission or death? Lee nodded once. The Krax made a sound that might have been laughter. What is your name, human who wishes to die? Sergeant Lee, Alliance Special Forces. A soldier, the Krax said, circling her slowly. Better than a diplomat, I suppose. You may call me Kryn. Remember it, as it will be the last name you learn. The bar patrons pressed themselves against walls and into corners, creating a makeshift arena in the center of the room. No one offered help. No one interfered. This was now a formal challenge under Krax tradition. Mr. Choi, the bartender, caught Lee's eye briefly. His expression was grim, but he gave an almost imperceptible nod as he moved valuable bottles from the bar top. Kryn spread its arms wide, displaying impressive natural weapons. Last chance to beg for mercy, human. I might grant it. Lee took a deep breath and settled into a fighting stance. I don't beg, she said simply. Lee quickly assessed her opponent. The Krax stood nearly twice her height, with natural armor covering vital areas and toxic talons that could end the fight with a single scratch. Its reflexes would be faster, its strength at least 5 times greater than her own. A direct confrontation would be suicide. Kryn moved first, covering the distance between them with shocking speed. Lee barely dodged the initial swipe, feeling the air displacement as talons passed inches from her face. She countered with a strike to the Krax's elbow joint, one of the few weak points mentioned in Alliance combat manuals. Her blow landed cleanly, but seemed to have little effect. Kryn's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. Is that all? Human bones would shatter from such a hit. The next exchange happened faster than most watchers could follow. Kryn advanced with a flurry of strikes. Lee avoided most, but caught a glancing blow to her shoulder that sent her spinning into a nearby table. Pain flared instantly. 3 deep gashes now marked her left side, blood quickly soaking her shirt. First blood, Kryn announced, examining the glowing toxin on its talons. The hunt begins properly. Lee pushed herself upright, ignoring the burning sensation spreading from her wounds. The Krax toxin was working already, but human physiology processed it more slowly than most species. She had minutes before paralysis would set in. Still standing? Interesting, Kryn commented. Most prey fall after first contact. The bar remained absolutely silent. The diverse collection of aliens watched with a mixture of horror and fascination as the human continued to face the apex predator. Lee caught glimpses of their expressions, the Hyaran's pulsing rapid color patterns of distress, the Vortec traders huddled together, even the Drev mercenary watching with grudging respect. Kryn attacked again, this time with more focus and less showmanship. Lee weathered the assault, taking small hits to position herself for precise counterstrikes. She targeted nerve clusters and joint connections identified in briefings she'd once thought theoretical. Each landed blow seemed minor, but she was systematically mapping the Krax's responses, learning its patterns. A savage backhand finally connected fully, lifting Lee and slamming her against the bar. Something cracked in her chest, ribs giving way under the impact. She slid to the floor, tasting blood. You fight well, Kryn said, circling her fallen form. For prey. Lee struggled to rise, using the bar for support. Her left arm responded sluggishly, the toxin affecting her nervous system. She spat blood onto the floor and forced herself to stand. Kryn tilted its head, studying her with what appeared to be genuine confusion. Why continue? Your defeat is certain. Your species is not known for pointless sacrifice. You don't understand humans very well, Lee managed, her voice raspy but clear. Explain then, before you die. Lee shifted her weight, buying seconds to gather her strength. Humans aren't apex predators like you. We evolved as persistence hunters. Meaning? Kryn asked, seeming genuinely curious despite the combat situation. We don't win by being strongest. Lee took a labored breath. We win by not giving up. Whispers spread among the watching aliens. The Centaurian bartender had moved slightly closer, his many eyes fixed on the confrontation. Kryn seemed to consider her words. Noble sentiment, useless against superior evolution. The cracks lunged again, but this time Lee was ready. She redirected the momentum using the predator's weight against it. Kryn crashed into several chairs but recovered quickly, hissing in frustration. Clever move, it acknowledged. But futile. Lee's breathing came in painful gasps now. The toxin spread further through her system, and her vision occasionally blurred. She needed to end this quickly or she wouldn't remain conscious much longer. The next attack came exactly as she predicted. Kryn favored its right side and had a slight hesitation. Before striking with its left talons, Lee exploited this pattern, ducking under an extended arm and landing 3 rapid strikes to the nerve cluster at the base of the Krax's neck. Another vulnerability mentioned in Alliance reports. Kryn roared, momentarily stunned. It hadn't expected the human to find that weakness. Lee pressed her advantage, grabbing a broken bottle from the floor and driving the jagged edge into the gap between armor plates at Kryn's shoulder. The Krax's natural armor was formidable, but the connecting tissue between plates remained vulnerable. Greenish fluid seeped from the wound, the first significant damage Lee had inflicted. "You bleed," she said, backing away to create distance. Just like prey. Kryn's eyes narrowed, mandibles clicking rapidly in what Lee recognized as anger. The predator touched its wound, looking at the fluid on its talons with disbelief. "You will suffer for that," it growled, all curiosity gone from its voice. Lee managed to smile through bloodied teeth. "That's not why humans fight." She braced herself, as Kryn charged again, this time with full predatory focus. The bar's patrons pressed further against the walls as the battle intensified, many now watching not with fear, but with stunned respect as the wounded human continued to stand against impossible odds. Lee wasn't fighting to win by brute force. That would be impossible against a Krax. She was fighting to survive long enough to find a weakness. Each exchange with Kryn taught her something valuable. The predator favored its right side when attacking. It had trouble tracking quick movements toward its upper left. The armor plates separated slightly when it extended fully. Lee's shirt was now soaked with blood, and the Krax toxin made her movements increasingly difficult. But the toxin had an unexpected benefit. It dulled the pain from her injuries, allowing her to push her body beyond normal limits. Kryn circled her, studying, the human with new caution. "You should be paralyzed by now." "Human physiology," Lee replied between labored breaths. "We're surprisingly hard to poison." The Krax didn't respond but attacked again, this time more carefully. Lee ducked under the swing, noting how the armor plates shifted. There, a gap appeared near the predator's lower back when it extended fully. She filed that information away. From the corner of her eye, Lee noticed Mr. Choi, the Centaurian bartender, watching intently. He slowly slid a bottle of blue cleaning solvent along the bar top, positioning it where she could reach it. Their eyes met briefly and Lee gave an almost imperceptible nod. "You delay the inevitable," Kryn growled, mandibles clicking in frustration. "No prey escapes a Krax hunter." Lee backed toward the bar, keeping her movements casual. "Is that what they teach you? That you're unstoppable?" "It is truth, proven across 1,000 worlds. Here's another truth," Lee said. "Humans specialize in stopping the unstoppable." Kryn lunged forward. Lee had anticipated this move. The cracks became predictable. When angered, she dropped low, grabbed the bottle of cleaning solvent, and as Kryn's momentum carried it forward, she smashed the bottle directly into its primary eyes. The chemical compound hit its target perfectly. Kryn roared in pain, the sound so loud it rattled glasses behind the bar. The predator clawed at its face, temporarily blinded by the caustic liquid. "Cowardly tactics," it bellowed. "Effective tactics," Lee corrected, using these precious seconds to create distance. The watching aliens murmured in surprise. The fight had already lasted far longer than anyone expected. The human should have fallen within the first minute, yet here she was, bloodied but still fighting, still thinking. Lee tore strips from her shirt, quickly binding her worst wounds. The makeshift bandages wouldn't hold long, but she needed to slow the blood loss. The crack's toxin continued spreading through her system, making her left side increasingly numb, but her mind remained sharp. Kryn had recovered enough to see again, though its eyes were now clouded and irritated. Its anger had transformed into something more dangerous. Focus. The Crax was no longer underestimating its human opponent. "You fight unlike any prey I have hunted," it said, moving more cautiously now. "That's because I'm not prey," Lee replied. "And I'm not alone." Kryn paused, wary of a trap. "Your allies hide their presence well." "Not allies here in this room," Lee clarified. "Humans survived on Earth by working together. Even when we fight alone, we carry the knowledge of millions before us." As she spoke, Lee maneuvered toward the bar's temperature control panel. During her initial assessment, she had noticed the overhead pipes carrying superheated steam throughout the station. One pipe ran directly above where they now fought. Kryn attacked again, but now Lee could predict its movements. She dodged sideways, staying just out of reach of those deadly talons, making the cracks extend further with each lunge. With each extension, the gaps between armor plates widened slightly. The watching crowd grew increasingly tense. Some leaned forward, forgetting their fear, as they watched the human's strategy unfold. Even the powerful Drev mercenary had abandoned its pretense of disinterest. "You cannot evade forever," Kryn said, breathing more heavily now. "The toxin works slowly in humans, but it works nonetheless." "I don't need forever," Lee replied. "Just long enough." She backed up against the wall near the temperature control panel. Kryn sensed an advantage, believing it had cornered its prey. The predator lunged with full extension, talons aimed directly at Lee's throat. Lee dropped to the floor at the last second. Kryn's momentum carried its arm forward, talons embedding in the wall directly into the temperature control panel. Sparks flew, alarms blared. The overhead pipe ruptured exactly as Lee had calculated. Superheated steam erupted downward, flooding directly into the gaps of Kryn's armor plates. The cracks howled as the steam penetrated its natural defenses, cooking the sensitive skin beneath. Lee didn't waste the opportunity. She rolled to her feet and delivered a precise strike to the base of the Crax's neck, the neural cluster that Alliance Xenobiology had identified as a critical weakness. Kryn's massive body went rigid. Its arms dropped to its sides. The predator swayed for a moment, then crashed to the floor with an impact that shook the entire bar. Complete silence fell over the room. No one moved. No one spoke. They all stared at the fallen Crax and the bloodied human standing over it. Against all odds, the prey had become the hunter. Lee stood over the fallen Crax, her own body trembling with exhaustion and pain. Blood dripped slowly from her wounds, creating small pools on the metal floor. The bar remained completely silent, every alien watching in stunned disbelief. By Crax tradition and law, she now had the right to take the predator's life. The watching crowd seemed to be holding their breath, waiting to see what the human would do. Kryn was not dead, merely stunned and temporarily paralyzed. The Crax warrior's eyes followed Lee, unable to move but fully aware. "Finish it," Kryn managed to say, its voice strained. "Take your trophy." Lee looked down at the fallen predator. Her vision blurred occasionally as the toxin continued to work through her system. She reached down and carefully removed a small ceremonial dagger from Kryn's belt, the traditional killing tool used by Crax hunters to end their prey's suffering. The knife felt heavy in her hand. She tested its edge with her thumb, drawing a drop of her own blood. "Humans, kill your prey," Kryn said, mandibles clicking weakly. "It is the way of predators." Lee crouched beside the Crax, knife in hand. The movement sent waves of pain through her broken ribs. "There's something you need to understand about humans," she said quietly. "We're not predators, not prey either." "What then?" Kryn asked. "Something else entirely." Lee set the knife down on the floor between them. "I don't need your death to prove my victory," She stood slowly, stepping back from the fallen cracks. "Yield," she said simply. The bar erupted in shocked whispers. Even Mr. Choi, the Centaurian bartender, dropped a glass in surprise. No one had ever heard of a Krax being offered mercy in combat. Kryn struggled, managing only to lift its head slightly. Its amber eyes studied Lee with confusion and something that might have been respect. "You would spare a predator who sought to hunt you?" "Yes. Why?" Lee thought for a moment, searching for words the Krax might understand. "Because true strength isn't in killing. It's in choosing not to." For several long seconds, nothing happened. Then, with obvious effort, Kryn performed the ritual gesture of submission, a movement of mandibles and head tilt that no living being outside Krax territory had witnessed before. "I yield to the human Lee," it said formally. The words seemed to hang in the air. No one moved, no one spoke. They had all just witnessed something that would change how the galaxy viewed humans forever. Lee nodded once in acceptance, then collapsed against the bar, her injuries and the toxin finally overwhelming her determination. Mr. Choi rushed forward to catch her before she hit the floor. "Medical pod. Now," the bartender shouted, lifting Lee's limp form with 4 of his arms. Everything faded to darkness. Lee woke 3 days later in a station medical pod. The synthetic healing gel had sealed her wounds and antitoxin had cleared her system. She felt stiff, but alive, considerably better than she had expected to feel again. A young medical technician noticed she was awake and rushed over. "Sergeant Lee, you're conscious. The whole station's been waiting." "The Krax?" Lee asked, her voice hoarse from disuse. "Left yesterday on a transport. Refused treatment, though it was clearly injured." The technician leaned closer, eyes wide. It left a formal statement of life debt with station security. "No Krax has ever done that for a non-Krax before." Lee nodded slowly, processing this information. She tried to sit up, wincing at the lingering pain in her ribs. "You should know," the technician continued excitedly. "Reports of what happened are spreading everywhere. 17 systems have already received the news. The Alliance Diplomatic Corps has been trying to reach you. Species that dismissed humans as weak are suddenly requesting cultural exchanges." Lee frowned. She had no interest in becoming a diplomatic, symbol, or public figure. "My shore leave ends tomorrow. I need to report back to my unit. But the Alliance wants to award you a—" "No ceremonies," Lee interrupted firmly. She swung her legs over the edge of the medical pod, testing her strength. "Have my belongings been located?" The technician nodded, pointing to a small bag in the corner. "Mr. Choi saved everything from your table." Lee dressed quickly, ignoring the technician's protests about leaving medical care too soon. Within an hour, she had checked out of the medical bay and booked passage on a supply transport heading toward the front lines. She slipped away before reporters could arrive, requesting immediate reassignment to active duty. 3 weeks later, at a small outpost 20 light-years from the last stop, a young Hieran child approached its parent. Their translucent body pulsed with curious light. "Patterns. Tell me the story again," the child requested, "about the human and the Krax." The parent's lights shifted to storytelling patterns. It happened at a bar called The Last Stop. A human stood alone against a Krax warrior. The story spread across the galaxy, growing with each telling. Some versions claimed Lee had fought barehanded. Others said she had defeated 3 Krax warriors instead of 1. The core truth remained. A human had faced an apex predator and won, not through superior strength or natural weapons, but through intelligence, adaptability, and finally, mercy. A new word entered the galactic lexicon that year, borrowed from human language: Valor.